So I want to ask you all, what do you resist the most in your life? Is it situations that are outside of your comfort zone? Ideas that maybe you don't agree with? Change? Maybe there's a project you keep putting off? Maybe you've always wanted to dance, but you keep resisting signing up for those lessons. How does that resistance make you feel? Jerry found this beautiful slide here. I feel like that's pretty accurate about how I feel about resistance. I personally have had resistance to public speaking and being truly open about sharing my spiritual viewpoints. And so that is why I decided to call Mike about a month ago and say, I think I want to do a gathering, because I knew that this was an area I was resisting. So resistance is a term that I heard about in a podcast where an author named Stephen Pressfield was, yes, right? He was talking about it more from an artistic, creative point of view. And he wrote a book called The War on Art. Of Art. Thank you. I haven't read the book. I just heard the podcast and I was like, oh, wow. And so resistance, he describes it as a force that stops us from doing our work, building our business, practicing our craft, or spending quality time on what we were meant to do with our lives. And he also says a lot of times resistance comes up right at the edge of a breakthrough, right before you're about to finish that album or start your Etsy store to sell your jewelry. I'm sorry, Jerry, I'm picking on you. And it's kind of like the universe is saying, how much do you really want this? Are you ready for the challenge? And these challenges can show up as external factors like not enough money, not enough resources, not enough time, forces that keep seemingly coming up against what you want, what your plan is. Or a lot of times they're internal, that we feel the resistance inside. And I found that resistance really points me in a direction that I need to uncover and work on within myself. And now, where does that resistance stem from? I believe it all stems from fear. So in my life, and I'm sure you get this feeling too, we come up against the fear of really presenting our heart and soul through our music. And so that fear of like, oh, I'm not good enough, I haven't practiced enough, or I'm scared of what people might say, that fear is really what the resistance is. And so it takes on that disguise of procrastination or distraction, laziness, or all of these excuses, really because we're just terrified. We're so scared of doing this thing or taking on this task. But I like your expression right now. You're really feeling this. I'm putting you in the corner here. But this is not only applicable to art and to your work, but also just our day-to-day mindset. I think we resist ourselves and who we are. We especially are scared of our darkness and the parts of ourselves that maybe we don't like or we're not proud of. So we a lot of times deny our sadness, push it down. We don't want to show that we're angry, so we just repress that. We reject the parts of ourselves that we think we shouldn't have or that shouldn't be there. We shouldn't feel that way. But as one of the great authors of our time, Brené Brown, says, owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy, the experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. I know for me, there's been way more of a heavy focus in my life on the light, on the good things, the positive things, the bright side. I've always been a very joyful person, and so for me, when things that were hard would come up, my tendency would be to push them away. And because I wasn't accepting all of myself, I couldn't really accept all of everyone else because I was rejecting myself. How could I truly accept others? Oh, sorry, I'm so new at this, guys. I apologize if my flow isn't always perfect. I forgot this one. I liked Blair's face. Blair's like, you're doing great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's way easier when I have a piano and like I'm playing underneath myself, because then it's just like the space is like filled with music, right? But resistance is a denial of what is. So we try to resist who we are, or we try to resist what we're doing, or where we are. And when we do that, when we keep resisting what is happening, what is right now, what we are, we suffer. And so I'm not saying that resistance is a bad thing, because it's a part of the ebb and flow of our life. It's part of these dualities that we struggle and strive, but then we succeed, we come out on the other side. There's the darkness and there's the light, there is death and there is life. And so even though these all appear to be opposing forces, they really are all working together for good. Even though our mind might not understand the big picture, we see this hard time in our life, this struggle is something evil or something bad, but really, without that dark period, we wouldn't fully come out on the other side to this new stage of light. And it's kind of like a circle, is what I've been feeling a lot in my meditations, that sometimes the circle is really wide and we're gonna be really into the darkness, but then we might come out really high on the other side into the light. But other times, the circle might be really small and we're just kind of hanging out in this nice, easy middle ground, that there's just little things that go off and then we get back on track. And so I think it's important for us all to remember, celebrate the expansion and the contraction. It's not always about being in this space where you're expanding. We have to also go within, go deep within into this contraction. Find the darkness and the light. Just like Mike said at the beginning, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances. All circumstances. One of the tools that I've used in my own personal life for looking within myself, into my internal dark and light and all of these seemingly opposing things, is internal family system, which was developed by Richard C. Schwartz. And I know Mike Griswold uses that, and I've been so lucky in this community that people have introduced me to such amazing practical tools at approaching your spirituality. But this tool in particular has been so amazing because you look at yourself as the true multitude that you are. You are not just one thing, you have many parts. We are one infinite mind, and it's all infinite manifestations, right? You guys know that. And so as you're looking, as in the internal family system, you're looking at the parts of yourself and kind of examining, like, okay, what is this part trying to say? It's crying out to me right now. And you look into that, and what I've realized is it's not just about looking at the parts, but looking at who's looking at the parts. So as you're doing this work, you kind of have to step back and say, oh, who is doing this work? Who's the one looking at all these parts? And what's making up all of these parts? And then you realize, I am not the resistance. Right? Yes. And one of my other favorite authors, Eckhart Tolle, says, whenever you become anxious or stressed, outer purpose has taken over, and you've lost sight of your inner purpose. You have forgotten that your state of consciousness is primary and all else is secondary. Your state of consciousness is primary and all else is secondary. We are all called to deeply explore within ourselves to find the truth, to find that love within ourselves. And in that deep dive, we find that there really is no separateness between you and I, or between you and God. And it's a complete surrender into this oneness. And I want to call Leslie up, my soul sister here, to sing a song about really taking on that challenge and going into the unknown waters and diving deep and being led by something that's bigger than our mortal mind may understand.